Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we would like to present our group assignment. First of all, let me introduce my group member. They are Jenny, Christine, Kasturi, and myself, In Kyung. Next, the thesis statement for this assignment is advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing supply chain and contemporary recommendation for Proton to maximize the benefit and minimize the risk. For the introduction, Proton was founded on May 1983 and it is fully owned by Malaysia government. Proton is the first car maker in Southeast Asia and the main plant is located at Shah Alam. Proton was joint venture with Mitsubishi in 1983. With the technology and training provided by them, Proton launched the first national car called Proton Saga in 1984. Due to the high quality and lower price compared to imported car, Proton Saga became one of the famous cars during that time. After 20 years down the road, Proton no longer the first choice of most Malaysia due to quality issue. In 2017, Geely acquired Proton 49.99% and Lotus 51% with a deal worth RM 1 billion. The strong partnership between Geely and Proton are benefit both companies. Proton have the resources to improve the quality of the product and financial status. At the same time, Geely will gain knowledge from Proton and Lotus to improve their innovation, which help them to become a leader in the Asia market. Now, I will pass to next presenter, Kasturi, for the following part.
Thank you, Enkyo. So now I would like to proceed further on the general explanation of strategic planning, core competency, and outsourcing. So what's outsourcing? Outsourcing is basically described as the transferring of activities traditionally done within a firm to the third-party providers within the country or abroad, which can be also called as offshore outsourcing. So outsourcing offers a potential solution for basically like price reductions and improved efficiency, which allows the business to turn fixed costs into flexible expenditure and increasing their economics of scales. So there are many reasons why an establishment does outsourcing, and they are actually mainly for to control their costs, free up internal resources, improvise on their business or customer focus, and to gain access to management expertise which is unavailable internally. So now I would like to touch on the strategic planning, core competency, and the relationship of these both to outsourcing. So core competency, what's core competency? It's basically the criteria which makes an organization or corporation unique on its own, having its own speciality. So a corporation's outsourcing will increase its core competency and competitive advantage, which aligns well to that particular corporation or establishment's strategic planning. So next, now I would like to focus on Proton strategic planning, outsourcing, and their core competency. We can see that Proton's main mission is to turn their company around to be more profitable and reclaim the position as a market leader in Malaysia. So we can see that the strategic planning of Proton is to basically expand its product portfolios in the A, B, SUV and MPV segments for their new export market potential. And we can see clearly that their core competency is to build a strong distribution channel in Malaysia, and this is an exceptional core competency for Proton. So in order to enhance their core competency further, Proton has actually converted 109 outlets of 1S to 3S or 4S service center by the end of the year 2018 in order to serve their customers better with better services. Next, we can see that the main thing that Proton sources is engines, and they source their engines from Geely. So by sourcing their engines from Geely, Proton has actually saved up their tasks by doing up their research and development process to come up with their own engine, and instead they are using that time that saved up space to fully focus on their product quality, productivity, their brand value, and also their core competency. Next, they have also switched to sourcing cheaper components from China to save their material cost. So we can see that Proton's outsourcing has gone to a whole positive level, and it stood as the second largest car seller with a percentage of 16.7 share last year, which made their very first profit in approximately 9 years. And lastly, they also obtained their technology support from Japan for their third national car from a very well-known Japanese company, which is Daihatsu. So next, I would like to pass it on to Jenny for the benefits of outsourcing.
I'm Jenny and I will touch about the benefits of outsourcing. So for literature review, the first point is about focus on core process. Okay, companies are searching for cheaper and more effective way to hand over their non-core functions to the third-party service provider so that they can have more time to focus on their core competencies. And this is aligned by the finding by COMPETENCIES saying that by focusing on core competency, a company can gain competitive advantage. Another point is about quick and better services. This is because the third-party service provider normally will have the relevant equipment and also technical expertise to carry out certain tasks in a more effective and efficient way. And the third point is about the access of the highly qualified experts. And we noted that Simon in 2009 have highlighted that actually 65% of the US company outsource their IT operations to the foreign countries due to the global talents available in the global market. The fourth point is about cost reductions and economy of skills. For instance, company normally will outsource their information management system to India because India are able to provide cheaper labor. And the last point is about risk sharing. Okay, the company can actually evaluate their processes in order to identify which process has a higher risk. So for those process have a higher risk that the company not able to handle well, they can actually consider to transfer the risk to the third party by doing outsourcing. Switching our gear to focus on Proton. Okay, as mentioned on the slides earlier on, Proton has outsourced their engines. This is because they do not have the high technology to produce its own engines. And by doing such outsourcing, they are now able to focus on improving their products and quality. And one of the example that we can see now is that they has enhanced their distribution channels, which is their core competency. Okay, they have actually converted a number of their distribution channel from 1S to 3S or 4S in order to serve their customer better. Second point is about quick and better services. We know that Geely has a globalized R&D network. So actually, Proton can leverage on their expertise so that they can produce the high quality cars in a shorter time in order to get back to the market and compete with the others. The third point is about the access to the global talents. As mentioned just now, Geely has a globalized R&D network. So actually, Proton can take advantage to access to a larger talent pool by doing the outsourcing instead of limited itself to rely on the local talents. And the last point is about cost saving. We know that building automotive engines is required huge investment. So it is better for Proton to outsource to the lower cost specialists as compared to doing it in-house.
My name is Christine, and I will be walking through the risks of outsourcing as well as some of the recommendations. So as we know, to enter into a business relationship with a third-party country is like handing over your wallet to another person. Basically, we trust that both parties must fulfill their commitments to manage a successful operation. But sometimes, even after we have performed our due diligence in trying to find the right service provider or supplier for the job, there is always a risk of supplier performance issues or business relationships that don't work out. So actually studies have shown that there is a high tendency for suppliers to perform better in the beginning stage, but there is no guarantee that it will last. And they mostly fail because of the lack of understanding on the process after they sign the contract, or it could be due to a lack of guidance or follow up from the managers that monitor the outsourced projects. So these failures will definitely disrupt the company's operations, which leads to a chain reaction that ultimately impacts the sales and then leaves the company with higher levels of unsold inventory level, and it ties up the cash. And in terms of staff morale, studies have shown that the adoption of outsourcing activities affects the staff turnover in organizations, and it tempers the employee morale. So by and large, offshore outsourcing translates into job insecurity, whereby the benefit and compensation will be reduced. So because once a company turns to offshore outsourcing, it is unlikely for them to bring the jobs back. Hence, the employees' anxiety in most private companies has led to a political backlash that results from this outsourcing to foreign companies. And besides, local suppliers also may feel challenged by the future competition in terms of cost of goods and services, which also leads to political backlash. In the case of Proton, they managed to purchase their engine parts and other components from China, which is much cheaper than the local providers, and this will slowly drive the local suppliers out of business. Actually, this is a risky move because when there is a lack of diversity among suppliers, there will be effects of switchover costs, and you will face problems like opportunistic behavior among the suppliers when you need emergency orders. All these ultimately increases the overall supply chain risk. And besides this, since Proton is buying from China, they will face fluctuating exchange rates that might translate into higher material costs. So on the other hand, the political relationship between Malaysia and China is very important as it directly affects the bilateral trade deals. So any significant political instability may actually lead to negative impact to the company. So in terms of recommendations, literature studies suggest that companies should outsource with the motive to improve their performance instead of doing this just to save costs. And there's a saying that not all functions can be outsourced, especially manufacturing support activities. And companies are recommended to lay out a formal outsourcing process and strategies to source for equipment. And to do that, they can utilize tools for multi-criteria risk assessment like the factor rating method and the analytic hierarchy process, which allows the companies to make comparisons and decisions in a quantitative manner. So another new term introduced here is emergent manufacturing. It's actually a mechanism that allows the manufacturers to mitigate the risk of outsourcing their functions with the help of statistical simulation models.
Now, I will be talking about contemporary recommendation. As emergency orders are generally more costly, it is recommended that Proton should practice multiple sourcing to reduce the supply chain risk. The multiple sourcing can be from domestic or international supplier. Based on study, show that domestic outsourcing has smaller risk compared to international sourcing. Supply chain integration with flexibility supply contract is important to achieve agility and responsiveness in the industry with a coordination mechanism that utilize information technology to allow synergy information sharing and joint decision making. Besides, Proton should encourage partnership among supply chain partners to enjoy greater ability to share inventory information and subsequently enable better forecast demand. Next slide, conclusion. To conclude, Proton has benefited from outsourcing as it's allowed the company to fully focus on strategy planning, on productivity, quality, and cost reduction, as well as enhancing brand value, while leveraging on their strong distribution channel. At the same time, Proton is also facing some potential risks, for example, creating a trade-off between cost-benefit and local industry relationship by placing great dependency on suppliers from China. Besides, Proton also facing political risks arising from outsourcing. So it is recommended that Proton should diversify among suppliers in order to emerge as a top player in the industry. That's all for our presentation.